What's up guys, welcome to Football Ledger. This is Sahib bringing you another video. This time we'll be talking about Liverpool. We'll discuss their last season, try to understand what went wrong, what changes Liverpool needs to do and what changes we can actually expect, the new and the potential signings and how they can impact the team. We'll also compare the 2022 squad with the current one and discuss what we can expect from the team this year. We'll also touch upon a few other topics like the role of Trent Alexander-Arnold, how the departures of senior players will affect the team and a few other topics. So without further ado, let's begin our video. Now coming into the 2022-23 season, Liverpool had high expectations because of their finish in the previous campaign. They were fighting for all 4 trophies and were contenders for the quadruple till the very last match day of every competition. And out of those 4 competitions, Liverpool won the EFL Cup and FA Cup, although those are also big achievements, but they missed out on the big 2. First of which was the Premier League, which they actually lost to Manchester City just by 1 point. Second was the Champions League final, where they lost to Real Madrid thanks to a solo goal scored by Vinicius Jr. Losing is always tough, but Premier League was a tough pill to swallow because it was second time in last 3 years where they lost to Manchester City by just 1 point. And the league could have been theirs if they didn't drew the match against Tottenham in matchday 35. So 21-22 campaign didn't finish as they were expecting, but they had high hopes for 2022-23 season. Yes, they lost one of their most important players in attack, Sadio Mane, adding to some other departures like Divock Origi and Minamino, but there were some exciting additions to the team, like forward Darwin Núñez and young midfielder Fabio Carvalho. Apart from that, there were high hopes from Luis Diaz, who was signed in the previous January transfer window from FC Porto, and he was performing well under Jurgen Klopp since he signed for Liverpool. Cody Gakpo was also signed from PSV Eindhoven. He was a good signing, but he came during the 2023 January transfer window. So there was a hole in the shape of Sadio Mane, but it always looked like team would be able to cope with that, and were looking forward for the next campaign. So to be honest, Liverpool had a disappointing 2022-23 campaign. They ended up at the 5th place in the Premier League standings, were out in the 4th round in both FA Cup and Carabao Cup, and in the Champions League they were eliminated by Real Madrid in the round of 16. They did win FA Community Shield beating Manchester City 3-1. But they won that trophy in the beginning of the season, and winning Community Shield won't be considered a big achievement from Liverpool standards. So it was hard to digest for Liverpool fans that a team which was challenging for all 4 trophies last year have fell this far. But it happened, and there were a few reasons behind Liverpool's demise. Let's analyze them briefly. First thing that I'd like to point out is the World Cup. It was a strange season for all the clubs, considering they had a break in between the season because of the World Cup. And yes, it caused players fatigue and exhaustion due to World Cup was also a reason for the team's underperformance. This problem was faced by all the big European clubs. But I must also point out the fact that Liverpool players were looking tired ever since their pre-season ended. Now, second problem according to me was putting trust on their aging core. It was clear to everyone that Liverpool's midfield needed an overhaul, but we were hoping for the players to show the same level as last year. But that wasn't the case, as the players like Thiago, Henderson, Fabinho and Milner all had a disappointing campaign and were looking like a shadow of their earlier selves. So trusting this midfield was a bet which did not pay off. While their potential replacements like Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott and Fabinho Carvalho, they showed promises, but they failed to make an impact on a consistent basis. Now talking about the third point, Liverpool's attack under Jurgen Klopp has been a positive side of the team. The front 3 have been iconic in the past few years, with relentless hard working from Mane, selfless attacking from Firmino and that flair from Mohamed Salah. It always felt like Liverpool on their day can break any defense, so Mane's departure to Bayern Munich left a huge hole in their attack, and players like Diego Jota and a January window signing Cody Gakpo couldn't make up for it. There were hopes from Luis Diaz, but he had to sit on the bench almost the whole season because of his injury. Darwin Núñez was not able to reach the levels that was expected out of him. Now add to that a major dip in form in Firmino's performance, which to be honest was unexpected. So all of this made Liverpool's attack toothless, and they were not terrifying defenses as they used to. There were obviously some moments like beating Man U 7-0, but there were no consistent avenues from where we can see goals coming on a regular basis. Now let's get into the fourth point. I would briefly like to discuss Liverpool's defense here. Liverpool's fullbacks have been one of the best fullbacks pairing in recent football memory. They have been really exciting to watch when it comes to joining the attack, providing crosses and defense breaking passes. And yes, they have come under a lot of criticism when it comes to defense, especially Trent Alexander-Arnold, about whom we are going to discuss at length. But both of them were quick to get back and join the defense in any counter attack or whenever the team needed them. And this style of play have really suited Liverpool, and they have been an integral part of the team. But this year, both of them, along with Kostas Tsimikas, were not up to the mark. They had defensive issues, yes, but going forward, they never looked like the threat they were in the past. Centre backs also underperformed. Talking about Virgil van Dijk and Matip, both of them, especially Virgil van Dijk, were way below their standards. Konate looked somewhat decent, but Alisson Becker also had a dip in form this year. So Liverpool defense had holes, which the other teams exploited, and Liverpool were leaking goals throughout the season. The fifth point I wanted to share is a little strange one. Anyways, let's get into it. Liverpool's performance against the sides in the bottom half of the table was bad, honestly. Let me share some numbers with you. Liverpool played 5 times against the team placed last in the table, and they just managed 2 draws, only 2 points out of possible 15. Liverpool's average was 1.97 goals in 33 games against the sides which are not placed 20th in the table. Now, if they could only maintain that stat against the team placed in the bottom, they would get 75 points, which would have placed them third above Manchester United in the table. Strange, but true. Also, I must remind you that Liverpool's ending of the season was not that bad. They had an 11-match unbeaten run to finish the season. So it's not all doom and gloom in the Merseyside, and the fans should be looking forward to the next season. They have already addressed the weakest point of the team, which was the midfield, and have made some decent additions there, which we'll discuss shortly. Talking about attack, Liverpool have some decent options to place in the front of the pitch. But we should also remember that there are too many options to play on the left wing and only one natural fit for the right wing position, which is Mohamed Salah, but their attack looks fine. If we had to discuss Liverpool's defense, in the beginning days of the transfer window, we heard the rumours where it was mentioned that Klopp wanted to make some additions in the Liverpool defense and wanted to bring in a young defender. But as of now, we are not hearing any concrete discussions with any decent defender. So assuming that there won't be any new additions in that position, I believe that Liverpool can go one more year with the defenders they have in their disposal. A major issue that Liverpool had in the 22-23 season was lack of confidence along with the player fatigue. And this has never been Liverpool's problem. Klopp's sides have always been mentality monsters, and if they can bring that mental side of their game back, I think they'll be fine this season. However, before giving my verdict about the next season, I think we should discuss about the departures and the new signings and how they can affect the team going forward. Now, talking about departures, players like Roberto Firmino, Jordan Henderson and Fabinho have all left the club to play in the Saudi League. And we can say that the players that I just named, along with Milner, were not the youngest of players, and Liverpool needed replacement in those positions because of their performance, or I must say the lack of it. So it's good, right? What's the problem? Actually, the problem is the lack of leadership that the team might face in the coming season. You see, all of them to an extent, but especially Jordan Henderson and Milner were leaders in the dressing room. And because of this sudden departures, we can see a scenario where there can be a lack of leadership in the team. There were some more departures like Naby Keita, who according to me couldn't establish his place in the Liverpool starting 11, but was an option from the bench, so he won't be a huge loss. Some players departed on loan as well, players like Calvin Ramsey, Carvalho, Sepp van den Berg and Reece Williams. But I don't think these players will be missed and need any replacements. So departures are done now, let's talk about the new signings. The area of the field where Liverpool needed some desperate changes were the midfield position, and Liverpool management have addressed that and brought in some good additions. The first player to arrive this transfer window was Alexis McAllister. You see, Liverpool needed a game-shaping and an imposing midfielder. That's why they were targeting players like Jude Bellingham and Federico Valverde. But these players were hard to get. However, signing McAllister improves Liverpool largely. Here's how. First of all, he's a defensive midfielder who is just 24 years old and was an integral part of Argentina's World Cup winning squad. That means he's already an upgrade when compared to the aging legs of Henderson and Fabinho, with the mentality of a World Cup winning player. Also, him being a defensive midfielder doesn't mean that his game is limited to defensive actions only. In fact, when I see him play, he does not look like an orthodox defensive midfielder. McAllister has great press evading capabilities. Also, he was exceptionally well in terms of ball recycling last year. And both these qualities made Gini Wijnaldum a crucial part of Klopp's system. Apart from this, he is also capable of delivering creative passes in the final third, like a proper number 8, and Klopp can make use of that quality very well in his new system. So he may not be a dominant all-around midfield player like Jude Bellingham, but the Reds can benefit greatly with his defensive actions. So here are some of his numbers from last year. He made 70 tackles in 2022-23 season, more than any Liverpool player. The highest in Liverpool was Fabinho with 65. He ranked 9th across all Premier League players for possession won in the final third with 29. He also finished with decent number of pressures last season. And in Liverpool, he was only bettered by Mohamed Salah with 669 pressures compared to 558 by McAllister. And this quality, with Jurgen Klopp's style of pressing, will only get better and will improve the team overall. He also made a total of 213 ball recoveries, which ranks him 20th in the Premier League. And yes, these are all defensive numbers, but he's also capable of weaving away from trouble and keep things under control, which will reduce likelihood of Liverpool losing the ball. Now, talking about his attacking capabilities, his non-penalty XG ratio of 7.4 is third best in the division among non-forwards, only behind Bruno Fernandes and Martin Odegaard. In fact, his numbers are better than Liverpool attackers, only except Mohamed Salah with 18.5 and Darwin Núñez with 12.1 ahead of him. His through ball skill can also be ranked on a higher side in the Premier League pool, ranking him 10th with 115 passes. He also had 106 shot creating actions last year, only behind Salah with 140 and Trent Alexander-Arnold with 126 from Liverpool. He's also capable of dribbling past the defenders and carrying the ball through the lines with low center of gravity. So if we add all of this, Alexis Mac Allister looks like a more than decent midfielder, and his numbers will only improve under Jurgen Klopp. But I think Liverpool's second signing, he's the one who will thrive under Klopp's system. Let's talk about Dominik Szoboszlai. He's an attacking midfielder who came from Bundesliga team Red Bull Leipzig. He scored 20 goals and provided 22 assists in 91 games for Leipzig. He was a really important player for both Red Bull Leipzig and Salzburg. He helped Leipzig to win DFB Pokal twice and Salzburg to win the league and cup double in consecutive years, which also saw him named Austrian Bundesliga Player of the Season in 2019-20 campaign. He was also made the captain of Hungarian national team in 2022 when he was just 22. He still is 22. Now on a serious note, he can be deployed into a variety of attacking midfield options. He certainly has an eye for goal. Compared to other midfielders in Liverpool's squad, he's more of a goal scorer. And one player he can be compared with is Philippe Coutinho. So of course he has some long-range goal scoring qualities. Now I don't want to bore you with numbers, but I have to give you some context, so I'll keep it short. Talking about his all-round skill set, in addition to his goals and assists, the Hungarian led the way for Leipzig for involvement in open play shot-ending sequences in the 22-23 Bundesliga campaign. For example, with 163 sequences, which includes 49 shots, 48 chances created and 66 build-up to shots. And that total was 4th highest in the division. He was first in Bundesliga for secondary chances created, second for open play passes received in the opposition half, 5th among attacking players for ball carries, and 6th overall for high turnovers. Now let me highlight what's supposed to be his special quality at the moment, which is shooting from range. Last season, his average shooting distance was 23.2 yards. It's like more than 5 yards outside the penalty area. It was 20th highest in Bundesliga. For reference, only one Liverpool player, Trent Alexander-Arnold, was above that marker. But his position is naturally deeper, so he'll obviously take more shots from a longer distance compared to a midfielder. Szoboszlai also tried his luck from outside the box more often than Alexander-Arnold. He had 36 shots compared to Trent's 30. And he was second in Bundesliga behind Bayern's attacker Leroy Sané, who just had one more attempt than Dominik Szoboszlai. To put it into perspective, Liverpool hasn't had a player in top 3 since Philippe Coutinho, who had a whopping 63 attempts in his final season at Anfield. And not so surprisingly, Mac Allister also carries this trait. He led the way in the top flight last year with 52 attempts. I think Klopp is trying to bring back that Coutinho trait. Now I understand that long distance shooting is not the most reliable form of attack and can be frustrating at times, but Szoboszlai has produced results with his previous clubs and national team, already scoring 11 goals from outside the box and 6 direct from free kicks. Don't forget he's only 22 and still has age on his side, and with right coaching he can reach great levels. So that's what I think about Mac Allister and Szoboszlai, the only 2 confirmed signings for Liverpool till date. Now a few points about potential signings. Liverpool has created a little complicated situation for themselves. They were initially interested in Romeo Lavia and they put forth 3 bids for the player, third in the final bid being around 45 million mark. But Southampton rejected their bids because they valued the player at around 50 million. But it felt like both clubs will have an agreement at some point and Lavia will go to Liverpool this season. But Liverpool on 10th August placed a bid of 110 million euros for Brighton's Moises Caicedo, who was chased by Chelsea, but they were not able to reach an agreement with Brighton for the player. But it felt like it was just a matter of time before both the clubs reach an agreement and Caicedo becomes a Chelsea player. But now Brighton accepted Liverpool's bid because it was close to their asking price for the player and were waiting to agree terms with Caicedo, but the player rejected Liverpool. And the reason for that, according to the reports, is the player has already agreed terms with Chelsea in the month of May and is not willing to negotiate with Liverpool. So if you look at the situation, the player they wanted earlier, Romeo Lavia, was priced at around 50 million, which Liverpool felt was too much for the player. And then they placed a bid of 110 million euros for Caicedo, which was accepted by his club, but the player don't want to come to Liverpool. And Southampton, who Liverpool were trying to convince to sell the player at 45 million euros, just saw Liverpool bidding 110 million euros to Brighton for another player. And now if they go for Lavia, I don't really think Southampton will be happy to negotiate with Liverpool. So I think Liverpool made the situation a little complicated for themselves. But I still believe one of Lavia or Caicedo will end up playing at Liverpool this season. And whoever comes will be a direct replacement for Fabinho as the defensive midfielder. And if you ask me, Caicedo would have been a better fit for Liverpool because of these reasons. First of all, he has already played with Liverpool's new signing Alexis McAllister in Brighton, and they had a good partnership there and can show the same understanding for Liverpool as well. Second reason would be Caicedo will be able to play as a defender like Fabinho used to do in emergency situations. He can also play as a right back in absence of Trent or whenever he goes forward, and Caicedo has already done that a few times. For example, the game where Brighton played against Manchester United and they won 1-0. My third and the most important point would be the way he plays the game will be better suited for Liverpool. Caicedo's strength is his ability to regain the ball before quickly launching the attack, which will be in line with how Klopp wants to play with his team. Last year in Premier League, he managed to win the ball and instigate the attack that ended in a shot at 18 separate occasions. His passing accuracy is also on a higher side with 88.9%, and in both these aspects, he was only behind Manchester City's Rodri in Premier League last year. He can also help in building up from the back. He has a close ball control and operates very calmly in the tight spaces. So all of this sounds good, but it won't matter if the player is not convinced by Liverpool, and in that case they'll have to bring in Romeo Lavia and convince Southampton to agree on a price anyhow. And with these three signings, Liverpool's midfield overhaul will be completed. Obviously they still need players like Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott to step up this season. So that'll be my take on confirmed potential and rumoured signings. I briefly wanted to touch upon Trent Alexander-Arnold's case, so let's get into it. A lot has been said about Trent Alexander-Arnold, but we should remember he has been one of the most important players for Klopp's Liverpool. The ball progression he does, the crosses and the assists he provides to the attackers, his shooting, quick thinking and the leader mentality, all of this has benefited Liverpool greatly in the past. Remember the quick corner he took against Barca when they eliminated them from the Champions League. So his contributions have been really important for Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. Now I completely understand that there have been questions about his defense, yes, and I agree that he hasn't been the best defender lately, and I personally never thought of him as a great right back in terms of defending, but his contributions going forward was the best part about his game. So let me share a few stats from last year. I think you'll all be surprised once you have a look at it. In Premier League, Trent committed just 2 errors that led to shot, and none of them resulted in a goal. So not that bad. Now prior to Arsenal game in April, only 4 Premier League defenders had a better tackle percentage rate than Trent, which was 73.2. He has been dribbled past by opponents only 20 times in Premier League, which is not a big number. In fact, it is 15 fewer than Newcastle's Kieran Trippier. So the picture that was created around him was like he cannot defend at all. All I'm saying is that's too harsh. What was shocking though was that a player who had 12 assists in the previous campaign just had 2 in the first 27 outings this season, until Klopp decided to change his role ahead of Arsenal's game in April. Now he started drifting into the midfield when Liverpool had possession, and he also gave an assist to Firmino against the title challengers. That was his first of 7 assists in 10 games, while he also had the most number of touches of any players in the league in that period. The total number was 1073, which is 122 more than the second placed Lewis Dunk of Brighton. He also recorded second most instances of possession won, which is 80, only behind Casemiro, who did it for 89 times, suggesting the change in position also aided his defensive game. And this change not only improved Trent Alexander-Arnold's game, but we saw an improvement in Liverpool's performance overall. Just for context, Liverpool won more points, which is 24, than every other team, of course apart from Manchester City, who had 25 points in the last 10 games. So this may suggest that Klopp will stick to the new system, and he actually did that for the first 2 games of pre-season friendlies, where Trent played as an orthodox defensive midfielder. But that can be because other midfield players were missing, as TAA was back to his right back position against Leicester City and Bayern Munich. But for me, Trent should play on the midfield, maybe on the right side or in a free role, giving him opportunity to get into the attack more. But that also means Liverpool will have to change their defensive tactics. Talking about defense, we have already discussed it briefly, so I won't get into much details, but I wanted to add a few points. If we talk about 21-22 season, Liverpool faced 53 big chances, and it was 5th fewest in the league. But that figure almost doubled. They faced 103 chances last year, and it was the 3rd most faced by any team, just behind Fulham and Leeds, who faced 112 each in 22-23 season. And that's not a good number, because Fulham and Leeds were mostly in the bottom half of the table. But again, we cannot blame all that on defense alone, because Liverpool is a pressing team. They start defending from the front, and attackers and mostly the midfield must also be blamed for their lack of defensive performance last year. We've also talked about mostly all the individuals in Liverpool's defense, apart from Gomez maybe, and because Gomez he's struggling to get in the first 11, there's no point talking about him in detail at this point, so not getting into it. But what I would suggest is, if Liverpool sticks to Trent Alexander-Arnold's new role, they must bring in a new defender who can cover the right side of the defense in Trent's absence. Liverpool already don't have any player who is a left-footed centre-back, and after Fabinho's departure, who was an emergency centre-back option, bringing a centre-back who can address the defensive issues caused by Trent going forward will surely address defensive issues and make Liverpool strong. You can imagine players like Ronald Araujo and Jules Koundé at Barcelona. When one of the centre backs or the right back is absent, they can cover for both positions. They can either play on the right side of the pitch or can play as a centre back who covers the right side of the pitch when needed. This will surely aid Liverpool's defence, and also they will have to work on their mentality and confidence, which is something they really missed last year. Now we have already discussed the signings and the departures. Now if we compare the current Liverpool squad with last year, I believe Liverpool has definitely addressed the area which desperately needed an upgrade, i.e. the midfield. But as I said, they can be affected by the lack of leadership due to departure of senior players. But I believe Klopp has the right pedigree to bring in that monster mentality back to the club. I still believe Liverpool defense needs some strengthening, and the team may struggle due to the lack of depth in that area. Players like Konate, Van Dijk and Alisson Becker needs to step up this season. An important point going into the season will be Mohamed Salah's form, because he will be the leader in attack, and if he gets going, it would be hard to stop Liverpool. But an injury to Salah and Liverpool won't have any proper replacement for him. Luis Diaz's comeback is also very important for the club and gives them great firepower up front. If he can match his form from earlier, he will be like a new signing, and that would help Liverpool's attack massively. I have hopes for Darwin Núñez as well. Yes, he was disappointing last season, but we saw glimpses of what he can bring to the table, and I believe he will improve. And he, along with Salah and Diaz, will spearhead Liverpool's attack. So Liverpool is definitely looking good, but if we compare them with their competition, well, that's a different story. Talking about their competition, City although lost important players like Gundogan and Mahrez, but they've brought some players like Kovacic and Guardiola to a squad which is already stacked up. Arsenal also have improved their team compared to last year, but I have some questions when it comes to their upcoming season, but we'll discuss that in our Arsenal video. In fact, I think Manchester United has also improved with additions like Edouard Mendy, Mason Mount and Højlund, and especially Maguire's departure. So when I compare them with Liverpool, I believe Liverpool will be the third favourite English team behind Manchester City and Arsenal. But I have a feeling that Man U will do good this season under Ten Hag, and Arsenal won't have the same season they had last year. Still, I think Premier League will belong to Manchester City again. Liverpool may win a trophy like FA Cup or EFL Cup, but the best they'll do in the Premier League will be finishing second. So that will be the end of the video, guys. And if you watched the whole video, tumhara tahe dil se shukriya. I thank you. A like and a subscribe to the channel will help us greatly. Please let me know in the comments what more would you like to see, what other topics would you like me to address, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.